You see, every single one of us carries a movie reel in our minds, a reel that plays moments from the past mistakes we made, pain we felt, betrayals we endured, failures that cut us deep, and sometimes that reel gets stuck. It replays again and again, convincing us that our future is destined to look just like our past. But let me tell you something. The past is not your prison. The past is only in your head. Your future is in your hands. Too many people wake up each day dragging the chains of yesterday into today. They let old wounds dictate new opportunities. They let the opinions of people who doubted them years ago shape the decisions they make now. But life doesn't work that way unless you allow it. Your future doesn't care about who you used to be. It only responds to who you choose to become. Think about it. If you drive a car and only stare into the rear view mirror, you're going to crash. The windshield is wide and clear for a reason. It's where you're going, not where you've been. The rear view, it's small. Glance at it, learn from it, but keep your eyes forward. Your life works the same way. Yes, the past can teach you. Yes, it can toughen you, sharpen you, even humble you. But it does not define you. What defines you are the choices you make in this moment, the decisions you're willing to commit to, the standards you're willing to raise, the habits you're willing to build. Your hands, these hands, hold the blueprint to your future, not the hands of the people who hurt you, not the hands of the people who left you, not the hands of the critics who laughed at you. Your hands, you get to design the life you want. You get to decide the meaning of your past. You get to take that pain and turn it into fuel. Some of you have been replaying your old story so long. You've started believing it's permanent. You've started to believe that just because it happened before, it's bound to happen again. But the truth, the moment you decide that enough is enough, the moment you take responsibility, the moment you stop pointing fingers and start raising your standards, that's the moment your future begins. There are two kinds of people in this world, those who are prisoners of their past and those who are architects of their future. The first group waits, hoping for change. The second group creates it. Which one are you going to be? You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not the voices that told you you can't. You are the choices you make today. You are the courage to step forward when fear tells you to sit down. You are the strength to keep going when the world tells you to quit. The past is in your head, but your future is in your hands, and the power to shape it, to mold it, to design it into something extraordinary has been with you all along. So the real question is, what are you going to build with it? The past is a lesson, not a life sentence, and the moment you begin to understand that truth, everything about your future changes. Too often, people carry the weight of their history on their backs as if it is some permanent definition of who they are, as if the mistakes they made or the pain they endured must forever shape the life they live. But the past is not a prison. It's a teacher, and it exists not to chain you down, but to give you wisdom, to carve strength into your character, and to prepare you for the next chapter of your life. Think about it. Every challenge you've faced, every failure you've experienced, every heartbreak you've carried was never meant to break you permanently. It was meant to shape you. It was meant to reveal something inside of you that you would never have discovered in comfort. And yet most people take those moments and build walls with them, walls that keep them stuck, walls that keep them small, walls that convince them that they can't. But if you shift your perspective, if you stop seeing your past as a life sentence and start seeing it as a lesson, then you take back your power, you step into freedom, and you realize that your story is not over. It's just getting started. Every great breakthrough in history came because someone refused to be defined by their past. The greatest inventors, leaders, creators, and achievers all had moments when they stumbled, when they failed, when they looked foolish in front of the world. They had people laugh at them, reject them, even betray them. But what separated them from the masses was that they didn't treat those experiences as the end, they treated them as information. They understood that failure was feedback, that rejection was redirection, that pain was preparation. When you carry that mindset, suddenly the weight of your past is no longer a burden, it's a resource. It gives you a deeper well to draw from, a richer story to tell, a sharper perspective on what matters and what doesn't. Look at your own life for a moment. How many times did you think you couldn't get back up? But you did. How many times did you think it was over? But you found a way through. How many times did you believe the voice in your head telling you to quit, but some small spark inside you refused to give in? Those moments are proof that your past did not defeat you. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still moving forward. That means your past failed to define you, no matter how dark it was, no matter how heavy it felt, no matter how loud the voices of doubt were. You survived, and in that survival lies evidence that you are far stronger than you've ever given yourself credit for. But here's the truth. As long as you keep replaying your past as a life sentence, as long as you keep telling yourself the story of "I can't because I failed before," or "I'm not enough because I was rejected once," or "I'll never change because this is who I've always been," you are handing over your power. You are voluntarily locking yourself in a cell whose door has been open the entire time. The past is in your head, but it is not in your future unless you carry it there. The problem is not what happened to you. The problem is the meaning you keep attaching to it. And when you change the meaning, you change the impact. Instead of saying, "I failed, so I'm not capable," you say, "I failed, so I learned what doesn't work." Instead of saying, "They hurt me, so I'll never trust again," you say, "They hurt me, and now I know the value of guarding my standards." Instead of saying, "I've been rejected too many times," you say, "Each rejection refined me for the right opportunity." The lesson of the past is always hidden inside the pain, and when you decide to extract the lesson, the pain loses its grip on you. Suddenly, you're not a victim of your history, you're a student of it, and a student can grow, adapt, and rise higher. Your past will always be there, but it doesn't have to hold you hostage. It's like a book you've already read. You can carry the lessons forward without rereading every painful chapter. Too many people live as though their book has only one chapter, the one where they failed or the one where they were hurt. They keep reliving that moment over and over, as if nothing new can be written. But the pen is still in your hand. The story is still being written. And every time you choose to take the past as a lesson instead of a life sentence, you write a new page filled with strength, resilience, and possibility. The most powerful people you've ever admired are not the ones who had perfect pasts. They are the ones who had broken ones, but chose to transform them. They are the people who decided that their wounds would become wisdom, that their scars would become symbols of survival, that their mistakes would become stepping stones. They decided that their past would not define their identity, but refine their character. And you have the exact same choice. So the question is not whether your past matters. It does. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to chain yourself to it, dragging it like dead weight into every opportunity, every relationship, every dream? Or are you going to set it down, look at it, and take from it the lessons that make you wiser, stronger, and more prepared than ever? Your past is powerful, but only if you use it the right way. If you let it teach you, it becomes your foundation. If you let it imprison you, it becomes your limitation. The past is a lesson, not a life sentence. Your future is built by the choices you make today, not the mistakes you made yesterday, and this is a truth that has the power to completely shift the direction of your life if you allow it to sink in. Too often people believe that because they've stumbled before, because they've failed, because they've said the wrong thing, done the wrong thing, trusted the wrong people, or gone down the wrong path, that somehow their future is permanently damaged, as if the errors of yesterday have the authority to control tomorrow, but they don't. Yesterday is already gone, it cannot be rewritten, it cannot be relived, and it cannot be undone, but today is alive, today is breathing, today is filled with opportunities waiting to be claimed. The choices you make in this moment carry more weight than every regret you've ever carried from your past. And once you begin to live with that awareness, you stop giving power to what is behind you and start building what lies ahead of you. Every person who has ever achieved greatness had moments when their past could have convinced them to stop. They had doors slammed in their faces, ideas that failed miserably, relationships that broke their hearts, businesses that crumbled, and yet they understood something most people overlook. The future is not a continuation of the past unless you choose to drag it with you. It is a blank canvas, and the brush is in your hand right now. The strokes you make today, the habits you commit to today, the decisions you stand by today, are the very things that will create the masterpiece of your life. It doesn't matter how messy yesterday's strokes were. It doesn't matter how many times you splattered the canvas with mistakes, because the picture that matters most is the one you're painting right now. Think about the power of a single choice, choosing to speak when you once stayed silent, choosing to take action when you once hesitated, choosing to believe in yourself when you once doubted, choosing to move forward when you once turned back. These choices may feel small in the moment, but they create ripples that shape the trajectory of your life. A decision to wake up earlier, to invest in yourself, to push through discomfort, to forgive, to let go, to dream again, to take a risk. Each one becomes a brick in the foundation of your future. And while you cannot control what happened yesterday, you always have control over the decision you make in this moment, and in the next one, and the one after that. The problem is that many people live as if their mistakes are permanent labels. They believe that because they failed in the past, they are failures because they were once weak. They will always be weak because they once quit. They are forever quitters. They confuse an event with an identity. But a mistake is not who you are. It's something you did. A wrong turn does not mean you are lost forever. It only means you took a detour. The danger comes when you allow those past events to chain themselves to your future decisions. That's when you stop taking risks. That's when you stop believing. That's when you shrink your vision and live smaller than you were ever meant to live. But when you realize your future is built by the choices you make today, suddenly the past loses its grip. Suddenly you understand that every time you decide differently, every time you act with courage, every time you take ownership of your next move, you are building a bridge to a new future. You no longer have to be defined by who you were. You can be defined by who you are becoming. It doesn't matter if you wasted years. It doesn't matter if you feel behind. It doesn't matter if you think you've blown your chance, because the future doesn't care about your mistakes. It only cares about your decisions. Your life is proof of this already. Think about moments when you decided to change something. Maybe it was as simple as deciding to step into a new environment, deciding to leave behind a toxic relationship, deciding to take that opportunity you once thought was too big, deciding to try again when you could have walked away. Those decisions shaped who you are right now, and without them, you wouldn't even be here. And the beauty of it is that same power is still with you, waiting to be used again. One decision can pivot your life. One choice can rewrite your story. One commitment can shift everything. The choices you make today are seeds, and they will grow into something tomorrow, whether you like it or not. If you choose to feed your excuses, you will reap regret. If you choose to feed your vision, you will reap progress. If you choose to stay stuck in old patterns, you will reap the same results you've always had. But if you choose courage, if you choose discipline, if you choose growth, then your future begins to expand in ways you can't even imagine. The question is not whether seeds will grow. The question is what seeds you are planting. And here's the truth. It doesn't matter how many times you planted the wrong seeds yesterday. You may have planted doubt, fear, procrastination, anger, or negativity. But today you can start planting something different. Today you can choose to plant consistency, courage, focus, hope, gratitude, persistence. The soil doesn't judge you for what you planted before. It simply grows whatever you give it now. Your life works the same way. The harvest of your future is determined by the choices you sow today, not by the mistakes you made yesterday. This is why responsibility is so powerful. The moment you accept that your choices matter more than your past, you stop blaming, you stop waiting, you stop wishing. You realize that you are holding the steering wheel of your life, and you can turn it in a new direction anytime you decide. The road behind you may be filled with potholes, crashes, and wrong turns, but the road ahead is untouched. It is waiting for you to choose where it will lead. Your future is not an accident. It is not fate. It is not some predetermined outcome that you have no say in. It is the result of what you decide to do with the opportunities in front of you right now. If you want a better future, you must make better choices. If you want freedom, you must choose responsibility. If you want success, you must choose persistence. If you want growth, you must choose discomfort. The future does not wait for you, it responds to you. Your future is built by the choices you make today, not the mistakes you made yesterday. Glance at the past, but keep your focus on the vision ahead, because life was never meant to be lived backward. The past is like a rearview mirror in a car, small, useful, important for awareness, but never meant to dominate your vision. If you drive by staring into that mirror, you will miss the opportunities, the possibilities, the road that stretches out in front of you, and eventually you will crash. The windshield is massive compared to that tiny mirror for a reason. It represents the future. It represents where you're going, and it demands your full attention. Too many people spend their lives staring into the rear view, replaying old memories, reliving old pain, repeating old conversations, and wondering why they feel stuck. The truth is, you cannot create a compelling future while being chained to yesterday. You must acknowledge your past, glance at it, learn from it, but you must not allow it to steal the vision of what lies ahead of you. The past has lessons, no doubt. It shows you patterns, it shows you consequences, it shows you who you've been and what decisions have shaped you. But those lessons only matter if you use them to fuel your progress forward. A student doesn't stare at old textbooks forever. They use what they've learned to tackle the next challenge. You are the same way. Your past experiences are tools, nothing more, and like tools, they are only useful if they are applied to build something better. You don't stare at a hammer all day and wonder why the house hasn't been built. You pick it up and use it to construct something. In the same way, you don't keep reliving past mistakes or victories. You take the lesson, you take the strength, you take the wisdom, and you put your eyes back on the vision ahead. Focusing forward is what creates momentum. Energy flows where attention goes, and if your attention is consumed by what's behind you, then your energy gets trapped in a loop of replay and regret. But when your focus shifts toward the vision, the goals, the possibilities, suddenly energy begins to move forward with you. You begin to create instead of dwell. You begin to grow instead of stagnate. You begin to open new doors instead of staring at the ones that have already closed. This is why some people live stuck in cycles, because they are obsessed with what was instead of committed to what could be. They talk endlessly about how things used to be, what they used to have, who they used to be, forgetting that every ounce of energy poured into the past is energy stolen from the future. Imagine climbing a mountain while carrying a backpack full of old rocks. Every rock represents a memory, a regret, a failure, a betrayal. If you spend all your time turning around to examine each rock, weighing it, replaying the story of how you picked it up, you'll never make it to the summit. But if you learn to take only the lessons from those rocks and then release the unnecessary weight, your climb becomes lighter, faster, more purposeful. The sum, it is not reached by those who are obsessed with the rocks of the past. It is reached by those who keep their eyes locked on the peak ahead. Vision is what pulls you forward. Without vision, you live in circles, repeating yesterday over and over. With vision, you begin to align your decisions, your actions, and your habits towards something greater. Vision acts like a magnet, pulling you through obstacles, pulling you past fear, pulling you beyond the limits of yesterday. But if your eyes are constantly glancing backward, you'll never feel the full pull of that magnet. You'll dull its power by dividing your focus between what's behind and what's ahead. There's a reason professional athletes, peak performers, and great leaders are obsessed with the next play, the next step, the next challenge. They don't live in their last victory, and they don't wallow in their last mistake. They take a glance, they adjust, and they get back to the vision ahead. A basketball player doesn't miss a shot and then spend the rest of the game staring at the scoreboard. He refocuses on the next opportunity. A quarterback doesn't throw an interception and then spend the entire game replaying it in his head. He studies it for a moment and then locks back in on the drive ahead. The same principle applies to your life. Your success is not determined by whether you have a perfect past, but by whether you can keep your eyes locked on the future long enough to make it real. The danger of staring at the past is that it blinds you to the possibilities of the present. There are doors opening right now, opportunities presenting themselves, people crossing your path who could change everything. But if your gaze is fixed on what's already gone, you won't even notice. You'll be living in yesterday's world while today's chances pass you by. Opportunities do not wait for you to finish grieving your past. They reward the ones who have the courage to look forward, to act, to believe again. It's not about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about refusing to give it power over your direction. It's about being wise enough to glance back only for perspective, but strong enough to keep your primary focus forward. Think about driving again. You check your mirrors for awareness, but your hands stay on the wheel, guiding the car toward your destination. If you drove by looking backward, you'd crash not because of the road, but because of your perspective. The same is true with life. The obstacle is rarely the obstacle itself. It's how much of your attention is glued to what's already behind you. Every person has a choice to be a historian of their past or a visionary of their future. A historian archives stories, repeats them, relives them, and polishes them like artifacts. But a visionary uses the past only as context and then commits their energy to creating something new. A historian says, "This is who I was," but a visionary says, "This is who I am becoming." The difference between those two mindsets is the difference between a life of repetition and a life of transformation. The truth is, you will never move forward until your vision ahead becomes more compelling than the memory behind. When the fire of possibility outshines the weight of regret, when the promise of tomorrow becomes louder than the pain of yesterday, then momentum carries you into a future that excites you instead of a past that defines you. That shift begins the moment you decide to glance at the past, but keep your focus on the vision ahead. You hold the blueprint of your destiny in your own hands, and that truth is both the most liberating and the most challenging reality you can ever embrace. Too often people live as if their lives were drafted by someone else, as if the map has already been drawn, as if the lines have already been set, and all they can do is walk the path handed to them. They blame their upbringing, their environment, their mistakes, or their circumstances as if those things were the final architects of their future. But your destiny is not designed by what happened to you. It is designed by the decisions you make and the standards you set. You are the builder. You are the designer. You are the one who takes the raw material of life and creates something with it. Every choice you make is a line on the blueprint. Every habit you build is a brick laid on the foundation. Every standard you raise is a wall strengthened. Every belief you hold is a pillar supporting the structure of your future. The most extraordinary lives are not accidents. They are constructed with intention, persistence, and vision by people who accepted the responsibility of holding the blueprint in their own hands. It is easy to give that responsibility away. It is easy to say, "I am the way I am because of them," or "I can't because of what happened to me," or I'll never have the chance because I wasn't given the tools. And yet, the truth is that you already have tools. You already have opportunities. You already have more power than you've allowed yourself to believe. The reason some people transform their lives while others stay stuck has little to do with luck and everything to do with ownership. The moment you take ownership of your blueprint, you stop waiting for someone else to build your life, and you start constructing it yourself. You stop hoping for permission, and you start laying down the design you want to live. Your blueprint is not static. It is not something you were born with and cannot change. It evolves with you. It responds to your beliefs, your decisions, your courage, and your persistence. Every time you raise your standards, the design shifts. Every time you decide to break an old habit and create a new one, the framework strengthens. Every time you push through fear and act on your vision, new rooms open up in the structure of your destiny. The life you're living today is simply the result of the blueprint you've been following up until now. If you don't like the structure, you don't destroy the building. You redesign the blueprint. You take control of what you're putting on paper, and you commit to building it brick by brick. What stops most people is not a lack of ability. It's the belief that the blueprint was written for them by their past or their environment. They think because their parents lived a certain way, they must too. They think because they failed before, they will always fail. They think because society has placed them in a certain box, that box must always be their home. But the blueprint is in your hands, not in anyone else's. You are not obligated to repeat history. You are not chained to your environment. You are not sentenced to your past. The pen has always been in your hand, and the moment you decide to write differently, the design changes. Think about an architect. No architect ever sits down to design a structure and says, "I'll just sketch something random and hope it turns into a masterpiece." They plan, they envision, they imagine the outcome before it is built. They don't look at the raw materials and say, "This pile of bricks defines the building." They say, "This pile of bricks is the resource, but the design in my mind is what determines the outcome." In the same way, your life is not determined by the raw material you were given. The family, the circumstances, the setbacks, the pain. Those are just the bricks. What matters is the design you choose to draw with those bricks. Two people can have the same raw material and build entirely different structures, one a shack and the other a mansion, because the blueprint was different. Your destiny is shaped not by what you have, but by what you design with what you have. Responsibility is the key to unlocking this truth. The moment you stop handing away responsibility, you reclaim your power. You stop saying life is unfair, and you start saying I am the one who builds. You stop saying they took everything from me, and you start saying I can create again. You stop saying I'll wait until circumstances improve, and you start saying I will build regardless of circumstances. Responsibility is not a burden, it is liberation, because it means you are not at the mercy of the world. You are in control of the blueprint. Every single day is another opportunity to sketch a new line, to adjust the design, to refine the structure. The habits you practice today will determine whether the building of your life stands strong or crumbles. If you choose discipline, courage, persistence, and faith, the blueprint expands into something extraordinary. If you choose excuses, laziness, fear, and procrastination, the blueprint shrinks into something fragile. Life does not respond to what you hope for. It responds to what you consistently build. And here is what's even more powerful. The blueprint is not just for survival, it is for greatness. Too many people design their lives with only the bare minimum in mind. I just want to get by. I just want to make it through. But the blueprint in your hands has no limits except the ones you draw. You can choose to design a life of abundance, a life of impact, a life of purpose, a life that inspires others. Nothing is stopping you from expanding the walls, from reaching higher, from building bigger, except the limits of your own imagination and the courage to commit to it. The blueprint you hold is not meant to be hidden in a drawer, gathering dust while you wait for the perfect moment. It is meant to be lived, acted upon, constructed daily. The smallest steps today are bricks in the foundation of tomorrow. Every choice is part of the design, whether you realize it or not. That means that even in the moments you think don't matter, you are building. Even in the choices that seem insignificant, you are shaping your destiny. The question is not whether you are building. It's whether you are building intentionally or accidentally. You hold the blueprint of your destiny in your own hands, and once you embrace that, you realize that there is no waiting, no hoping, no blaming, no postponing. There is only building, creating, designing, and living in alignment with the life you've envisioned. Your hands have always had the power to shape your future, and the design is waiting for you to commit fully to it. Stop replaying old stories. Start creating a new chapter, because the stories you tell yourself become the identity you live inside of, and too many people are trapped in stories that no longer serve them. They replay the same painful scenes in their minds, the same failures, the same heartbreaks, the same betrayals, and with every replay, they reinforce the belief that this is who they are, that this is the life they are destined to live. But your life is not a rerun, it is a book in progress. And as long as you are still breathing, the pen is in your hand. You don't have to keep reading the same chapter over and over again. You don't have to keep telling the same narrative to yourself and others. You don't have to keep identifying with the pain of your past. You can write something new, something bold, something that excites you instead of drains you, but it begins with refusing to live in the loop of old stories. Every story you tell yourself carries power. If you tell yourself you are broken, you will live broken. If you tell yourself you are unlucky, you will filter every event through that lens. If you tell yourself you are not enough, every opportunity will look too big, every dream will feel impossible, every challenge will feel overwhelming. But when you change the story, you change the meaning, and when you change the meaning, you change your life. A story is not reality. It is the interpretation of reality, and interpretations can shift the moment you decide to shift them. The same past event can either be the story of I failed and I'll never succeed, or the story of I failed and I learned what not to do next time. The same heartbreak can either be the story of I can never trust again, or the story of I now know how valuable trust really is. The past doesn't decide which version you live by, you do. The danger of replaying old stories is that they keep you in a pattern. You tell yourself the same narrative enough times, and your brain begins to hardwire it as truth, even if it's nothing more than interpretation. Then you begin to live out of it, behave out of it, and attract experiences that match it. That's why so many people repeat the same cycles in relationships, in careers, in personal growth, because they are stuck inside an old story. They say things like, "This always happens to me. I never catch a break. I'll never be successful." And their mind filters the world to prove those statements right. The story becomes a cage, and the tragedy is that the door to that cage has been unlocked the entire time. Creating a new chapter doesn't mean erasing the old ones. It means taking ownership of the story from this moment forward. It means saying, yes, this is what happened, but it is not the whole book. It means deciding that your past is a prologue, not a prediction. It means recognizing that while you can't rewrite what has already been written, you can choose what gets written next. The most powerful transformation happens not when you change your past, but when you change the story you tell about your past. Instead of being the victim who was broken, you become the warrior who survived. Instead of being the failure who lost, you become the student who learned. Instead of being the person who was abandoned, you become the person who discovered their own strength. That shift creates the freedom to write the next chapter with power instead of pain. Your story is alive every time you speak it. When you tell others about who you are, about what has happened to you, about what you believe is possible, you are writing the narrative in real time. The problem is that many people tell their old stories so often that they've convinced themselves they are permanent. They tell the story of their failures more than the story of their resilience. They tell the story of their heartbreak more than the story of their healing. They tell the story of their fear more than the story of their courage. And then they wonder why the future feels like the past, because the chapter they are creating is simply a continuation of the old one. If you want a new chapter, you must start speaking it. Start declaring it. Start living as if it is already being written. Creating a new chapter requires vision. You can't simply stop replaying the old story. You must know what story you want to create instead. What do you want your life to stand for? What do you want to wake up excited about? What do you want to leave behind as a legacy? That vision becomes the plotline of the new chapter, and once it is clear, every choice, every habit, every belief can begin aligning with it. Without vision, the old story will keep sneaking back in, because your mind craves a narrative to follow. With vision, the old story loses its grip, because the new one pulls you forward with more power than the old one can hold you back with. Think about a book you've loved reading. No matter how gripping a chapter is, you always turn the page because you want to see what happens next. Life is meant to be the same way. If you are stuck rereading the same chapter, it's not because the book is over. It's because you stopped turning the page. You've convinced yourself that nothing new can be written, when in reality you are the one holding the pen. The ink has not run dry, the paper is not finished, and the next chapter is waiting to be created. It requires courage to put the old story down. It requires courage to let go of the identity you've carried for years, even if it was painful, because that identity was at least familiar. It requires courage to stop saying, "This is just who I am," and start asking, "Who do I want to become?" It requires courage to stop letting your scars dictate your future, and instead let your scars become the symbols of strength that propel you forward. But once you take that step, once you decide to stop replaying and start creating, you discover a power inside you that you may not have known was there all along. Every person you admire, every success story you've ever heard, came from someone who chose to write a new chapter. They could have stayed trapped in their old narrative, they could have replayed their pain, they could have accepted that their story was finished, but they didn't. They picked up the pen, they took responsibility, and they created something different. That same power is in you right now, waiting to be claimed. Stop replaying old stories. Start creating a new chapter.